Hey everybody, this is the Pacific Crest Trail Water Report webinar for 2022. Some administrative stuff here first. If we could please mute your microphones if you're not speaking. This will help reduce some of the background noise. I've got my own background noise here, so hopefully that helps improve everything a little bit. We are recording this webinar right now as well. You're watching a recording, and Sunny D and I are both live. I am woodglue, and together Sunny D and I head up the water report, the report sheets, the map, the Facebook group, the Instagram page, etc., etc. I've got just over 1,000 miles of backpacking under my belt. I've completed the Trans-Catalina Trail. I'm Mount Whitney and Half Dome, and I've summited Mount San Gorgonio and Mount San Jacinto several times. I'm a PCT section hiker, and I've got about 500 miles of the trail completed. And this is my third year heading up the water report. Sunny D has been with me for a couple years now, working on the water report together. And she too is a PCT section hiker with just over 200 miles of the trail completed thus far. She's got about 10,000 miles under her belt of backpacking, and she's also summited San Gorgonio and Mount San Jacinto several times. The PCT water report is available online at pctwater.com, and here you can get either PDF versions of the water report, or you can download Google Sheets also, and those would have the clickable links in them. Beyond this, we also have our new Google map is available. I'll get into that more later on, but the fancy way to say it is the Pacific Crest Trail Water Report is a crowdsourced conglomeration of boots on the ground data. And this is based strictly upon updates that come into us from either hikers or trail angels that are on the trail. And before any update gets entered into the water report, it undergoes a series of quality control screening, if you will, for continuity and accuracy, and then it gets updated into the report. The report is updated daily between March and November, and then weekly December through February. Fire updates and trail closures are included in the report, and we're purporting any information forward from the U.S. Forest Service, BLM, state parks, and the PCTA. The Sierra snow conditions are also included, as well as mountain pass conditions and water crossing reports. This is all, again, based on hiker input. So there's no better way to pay it forward to the people coming up the trail behind you than to provide updated information into the water reports. If you're crossing a river today, your report can definitely help people who are crossing the same river next week. Any information from governing agencies or assisting agencies are shown in the report, but the report is managed independent of these agencies. You can send in your updates via email or text. The text phone number is at the bottom of the screen here, 619-734-7289, or you can email it to water@pctwater.com. Our Facebook group is pretty cool. One of the best things about it is the archive that we have on there. These are the albums. You can go in there and see photos hikers have sent in over the years, broken down by section of trail and year. You can click on, for example, California Section B. This is from 2020. Several pictures shown there. Then you can click on one of the pictures and see the source update. So this is at mile 205.7, June 6th of 2020. The faucet was on, and this is Kenai, a horse that Aaron rode through the PCT, drinking out of the faucet there. We are on Instagram at PCT Water. You can check us out there. Send in your updates of any photographs that you have of source updates. You can send your water report updates into us, again, via email or text. And the way you do that is you include the mileage points, the half-mile waypoints. Tell us the date that you were there and what you saw, 2 liters per minute flowing, or cache had 75 gallons, etc. Guthook's mileage points, as of last year, were not coordinated with the half-mile waypoints, and that's due to a trail change in Section M, and I believe that's still the case in 2022. New for 2022 is something we're really excited about, is the PCT report. It's a Google map. It's interactive, and it's more than just water updates. It's got the crowdsourced data about campsite locations, fire closures, trail reroutes around the fire closures, snow pass climbs, creek fording information, bear sightings, even where there's a beehive, and yes, we still have water source updates. You can access this from your phone while on the trail, and it's all for free. Also new for 2022 is the PCTA's guidance for visiting the trail during the pandemic. And this was a notice that they put out in December of 2021 and then updated it just recently, February 7th. And you can read more about it at this link here, but basically they're asking that hikers please get fully vaccinated before hitting the trail. California Section B has some updates. At mile 172.5, there was this rock slide that hikers have been contending with for the last couple years. And this happened after an earthquake in the area. And then hikers have been climbing over and around and under this rock at 172.5 for all these years. And the rock is gone now. It was blasted out of there a few months ago. And the PCTA is saying that the trail is still narrow and damaged, and they're not recommending equestrians travel through access this section. The snow fire area at Mount San Jacinto, this was a closure that we had last year from mile 191 through 206, the descent off of Mount San Jacinto, and this was reopened in April of last year. So 2022 class won't have to contend with that closure. Knowing is half the battle, and at your fingertips you have a multitude of maps and other resources. Half miles 2019 PCT maps. These were discontinued in 2019, but these still remain pertinent today. They have the half-mile waypoint markers. This is Lon Cooper, and he's otherwise known as Half Mile on the Trail, and he's gone through and tracked this trail every half mile and located the trail with his GPS data, and so he's developed this system of waypoints for the trail. And these waypoints were also used in the PCT water report. Lon Cooper is the grandfather, if you will, of both the half-mile maps and the PCT water report, and they work hand in hand with each other. As the maps were discontinued, the waypoints have still remained in use in the PCT water report. National Geographic came out with their PCT maps in 2019, and this is an analog glove box style map, and they've also got an app-based version of it, and they do not have the mile markers or waypoints from half mile, so they're not coordinated with the water report, so you don't have the same locations showing up on there. And these maps cost $125. PCTA recently came out with their interactive map, and it's web-based, and it has the mile markers. That brings us to the 2022 PCT report, and this is a Google map based on PCT half-mile markers, and this is accessible from your phone on trail, and this is all for free. We've got these water icons shown on the left side for faucets, or unknown areas would be the red, hazard sign. You can zoom in on areas like this and click in, and you can see at mile 380.5 that the PCT is closed. Here's a link to the PCTA notice, and then a possible reroute idea going around the closure. And you can pan over and take a look at water source locations. You can graphically see if you can expect water based on the last updates. You can click there and see that water was available as of the last update there. Then there's general information also for northbound hikers, warning of the area up ahead, big icy snow-covered Mount Baden-Powell. Warnings ahead for the hikers. Behind this screen there's a group of volunteers that have put this together without charge to hikers, and that's something that's pretty important to us, that you can have this information at your fingertips without paying for it. You can look at the Sierras and see the topography. The maps are beautiful. And check the water source locations, check the campsite locations. You could pan over, and we're going to go over to Mount Whitney here. Check out the top of that, and you can see the topography. And I'm just recording this on my cell phone. I was panning around and taking a video as I spooled around with my thumb. So it's a pretty neat document, and we're excited by it. All the information that goes into the water report also goes into this PCT report map. Mount San Jacinto Trail Report is a extremely valuable resource, and a gentleman by the name of John King lives in Idlewild, and he climbs this mountain, I don't even know, 20, 30 times a year, something like that. And he gets up there and he gives a trail report, I want to say every 3, 4, 5 days, something like that. He's putting out a new trail report. He also has a YouTube channel, San Jacinto Trail Report, and his website is sanjacjon.com, sanjacjon.com, and you can check out his trail reports there. Beyond that, the PCT Water Report volunteers put out the 2017 Sierra webinar. It was a big snow year, and you can check that out here. And the 2019 Sierra webinar. And these are webinars, how to traverse through the snow-covered Sierras and the raging river crossings. That brings us into the PCT Water Report. This is the website. When you log in, down below here you can see Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. This is the PDF copies of the water report. Or you can scroll down a little farther and you can get the Google Sheets. This is what you see when you open up one of the water reports. And up in the upper right hand corner you can see this was last updated on January 28th. I snapshotted these shots last month, but they're updated, I say, on a daily basis at this time of the year. But you can see the location on the left side, mile 463.2. The location is called Bear Spring, and general information about where to find the spring is listed there. And then the hiker updates. So January 17th, Heather D reported that it was not flowing, but there was water in the box, probably because of the rain. There's a link here that you can click. That's a photo that Heather provided when she gave us the update, and that link is archived on our Facebook page, so you can click that link and it takes you into the album, and you see her picture of the spring as of January 17th. Then you have the PCT report. You can click on Bear Spring here, and you can also see Heather's update from January 17th with the same link for her photograph. So the water report Google Sheets and the water report map are synonymous. They work hand in hand, and you can look at one or the other or both. They've both got the same information. You can click on the photo, and that takes you to Heather's photo that she sent in, the Facebook album. Simple way to send in your water report updates is, hey, woodglue, at mile marker 463.3 this morning, it was flowing strong at 3 liters per minute. And then say your trail name, whatever you want us to put there, Cookie Monster or Bill or whatever. We also get mass updates, and this was a pretty cool thing that we saw last year. We had a hiker give us updates every single water source location as they went along the trail. And really nice to get these and pay it forward to the hikers coming up the trail behind. There's a way to automatically cache your iPhone to receive the Google Sheet updates when they come in, and there's explanation here on how to do that. Now we'll get into our water sources. On our Google map, we're showing this faucet icon for any man-made source, be it a hose or a faucet, a spigot, or even a cache. Water caches are something that should not be relied upon. The increased number of hikers, water caches will be even less and less reliable in 2022 than they were in previous years. Water caches are maintained by trail angels, and due to the pandemic, we've seen trail angel maintenance activity reduce, or trail angels simply retire away from the trail, and that's happened in the last 2 years. Unmaintained water caches are strongly discouraged. Somebody goes out and starts putting down a water cache somewhere, it's important to be maintained. Down at Hauser Creek, mile 15 a couple years ago, we even saw U.S. Forest Service go in and remove a water cache that was on the PCT because it created a danger for hikers. This is some information on the Third Gate water cache, and this is a cache that's located at mile 91.2. And you will see this cache, and you will not see another cache like this the entire trail. It is the mother of all caches. And you can see the water consumption here. We don't have consumption rates for 2021 yet, but all the way from back in 2019, that was the last normal year of through hiker population. You can see it in the April 30th, they had posted a consumption of 1,314 gallons. Just incredible amount of water at this source. You can camp around this area, but you can't have campfires. This cache went dry 3 times before 2019, but it hasn't gone dry since then. 2020 we don't consider to be a full hiker year because of the pandemic. 2021 much the same. From here you take the minimum amount needed. Barrel Spring is only 10 miles away, and then Mount San Ysidro Creek is 14 miles after the Third Gate cache here. After this you have natural water sources, and this is shown with the blue water drop if it's a good source on our PCT map. This is any water flowing from a natural source, a spring, a stream, creek, lake, or cistern, and it's more consistent and reliable than a man-made source. The flow of the creek or spring will gradually slow, whereas the man-made source can dry up overnight. Flow is predictable looking at previous reports. If I look at the report and I see that last Thursday, creek at mile 105 is flowing strong, then I can pretty much evaluate that when I go through there this morning, it should be flowing just as strong. Maybe a little less, maybe a little bit more, depending on the rains that we've had. These are some water sources that you can expect to see. Mile 38.8, you have the lower Morris Meadow. And these are basically troughs and springs and cisterns that you're coming across. You have the pipe spring before Grass Valley Creek at mile 317.4. You have a trough at Willow Spring, mile 620, and then Golden Oak Spring at 583.3. Very common. These are reliable sources. You have to be aware of contaminated water in the backcountry. You should definitely purify anything that you get out of a creek or stream. You don't know if a dead carcass was just removed from that spring box, or if there is a dead deer laying in the creek a mile above the trail crossing that you're at. Always treat water that comes from a pipe or a spring tank. Can't even guess what might be going on inside those things. I think this was a picture taken in 2015 by Lawrence the Spring Guy when he cleaned out the barrel spring at mile 101.1, and I think these are dead mice in the spring box there. E. coli regularly rears its head in Southern California areas. We didn't see any in 2021, but in prior years it's been rampant all throughout Southern California. Typical dry sections of the trail, starting off right from Campo, you're going to have a long water carry all the way up to Lake Marina, which is at mile 20, so you got 20 miles of carry there. If you get lost right after Campo, there's a Buckman Springs Road that's probably 2 or 3 miles to the east. The climb out of Hauser Canyon can be really hot in the afternoon. It's south facing and it's fully exposed as you climb up there. Usually you're hitting mile 15 in the late afternoon if you leave Campo first thing in the morning, and that's right when the sun's just beating down on that Hauser Canyon face. There's no shame in doing this initial section in 2 days. You don't have to go for broke and get to Lake Marina at mile 20 on the first day. You can definitely find a place to throw your tent down at Hauser Creek somewhere before you do this big climb. You only need to carry 1.5 days of food to resupply up in Lake Marina. There's a small store there, and you can definitely take advantage of that and not have to load your pack up with 8-10 days worth of food or anything crazy. California Section B, this is mile 186. There's the North Fork of the San Jacinto River that you cross, and then after that it's 20 miles down to the Snow Creek faucet that I showed you Kenai drinking out of down at mile 206. So this is a long downhill climb, and a lot of times the temperature will increase 40-50 degrees from the top of the mountain down to the bottom of the mountain. And your descent here will be a total of 8,000 feet, and you end up on the frying pan, they call it, at Highway 10, and hot sandy terrain. Then you get California Section D, and you have Cajon Pass. This is at mile 342. You have a 22-mile carry to get up to Guffey Spring at mile 364. And this is a long waterless climb, a 6,000-foot climb. Limited camping options, and it's often hot weather climbing up out of the Cajon Pass towards Wrightwood. Guffey Spring went dry multiple times in 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 20. It goes dry every year, and you get up there late in the season, and that's dry, so you're on to the next water source, so that even extends that 22-mile carry farther. Then you get to Section E, and mile 518, Hiker Town. You have 24 miles to get to Tyler Horse Canyon. And even as of right now, the latest reports don't hold that there's any water at Tyler Horse Canyon at mile 541.6. We're keeping our fingers crossed for some rain here in March and April, so that the hikers come through Tyler Horse. There's some water there. But that's a long 24-mile carry, and this is where the infamous aqueduct is. And a lot of people will choose to hike this section at night. Like I say, Tyler Horse is dry right now, and it was dry in September of last year, so it's been dry all winter. As a reminder, we're showing any dry water source with this red hazard icon, the PCT report map. After this, you're getting into the California Section F, and we'll delve into this with a little more detail later on, but this is mile 566 through 653, and this is a big waterless carry. This is notoriously one of the driest sections of the PCT, and hikers usually arrive here late in the season when the weather's warm. There's a big climb there, and water sources are 30 plus miles between each other and make for long water carries. Then you get up into California Section N, and this is Hat Creek Rim, and you have 30-mile waterless carries in this area. The side trail to Lost Creek Spring at mile 180 or 1386, and again, hikers usually arrive here later in the season, and it's warmer weather. You might even be into well into summer temperatures by then. There's very little shade, lots of exposure, and a lot of people will walk this section at night. Then in Oregon, you have another big, long, waterless section. This is mile 1823, Crater Lake Rim. It's a 26-mile carry to mile 1856.1. Fortunately, there's gradual terrain there, but Oregon can be surprisingly dry and hot in some sections due to the volcanic soils. California Section A, we'll go into a little more detail on this. You want to start with at least 5 or 6 liters of water. Your first guaranteed water is at mile 20, Lake Marina. 5 or 6 liters of water would carry you up through the Hauser Canyon climb. Don't rely on water caches. That's just a rule of thumb that we'll exercise here often. And you want to plan only to use reliable water sources. Your consumption rate, you should allow for at least 1 liter for every 4 to 5 miles hiked. I can tell you that I'll drink more than a liter in 5 miles if I'm climbing a hill. I'll start sucking down the water pretty fast. Check out the water report before you get out there. PCTwater.com. You can see what might be on the trail in front of you, what you can expect. Send water updates into the email address, or you can text them to us at this phone number. There's reliable water sources at mile 20, the malt shop at Lake Marina. At mile 26, Boulder Oaks Campground. There's 6 miles between those two. 17 miles after that, you have the Mount Laguna Lodge Store at mile 43. 16 miles after that, you have the Sunrise Trailhead. There's a water tank there with a trough. In the early season, the U.S. Forest Service will shut off this tank, this trough, to prevent it from freezing. But usually by mid to late March, they've got the tank turned on, and water is accessible there at mile 59. Then at mile 68, you have Rodriguez Spur Truck Trail, and there's a tank there that has water in it right now. Later in the season, it may not. Then you get down to a water cache at Scissors Crossing. This is at mile 77, and there's a way to hitch into Julian from Scissors Crossing along Highway 78, and that's 13 miles west of the PCT. Or you can hitch 4 miles south on County Route S2 down to Stagecoach Trails RV Park. From here, you climb up to the Third Gate water cache that we talked about earlier, and that's at mile 91. 10 miles after that, you have Barrel Spring. 4 miles after that, you have San Ysidro Creek, and then 5 miles after that, you have Warner Springs Resource Center. So you want to look ahead at each of your sections on the water report and kind of plan out your route with this kind of information. Here's a detailed look at California Section F, and this is from Tehachapi Pass up to Walker Pass. And your water sources are far and few between here. You have mile 566. This is Tehachapi, where Highway 58 crosses, and you have 36 miles to your next reliable water source at Robin Bird Spring at mile 602. You have Golden Oak Spring that is in between those two at 583, and It ran solid in 2020 and 2021, but was unreliable and had a very slow drip in previous years. You can expect long lines during peak hiking season. You have the bubble coming through, and everybody's hitting the water source at the same time, and you end up sitting in line waiting for your turn to fill your water capacity. Starting at Tehachapi Willow Springs at mile 556 adds 8 miles to the waterless stretch. And we can get into this a little bit later on, but that makes it a 44-mile carry if Golden Oak Spring is not running. So you have Robin Bird Spring at mile 602, and from there it's 7 miles to the next water source at mile 609, Landers Camp. Then you have 11 miles to the next water source at mile 620, and this is Willow Spring. But after that, it's another 31-mile carry to get to the next water source. Willow Spring is 1.5 miles off the trail, so you're looking at a nice 3.2-mile round trip. Went dry several times in the past years. The northbound transition between California sections E and F. So this is what I was talking about earlier. At the bottom of the screen, location number 1, you have Tehachapi Willow Springs Road, and this is mile 558.5. A lot of people will get off here and hitch into Tehachapi. That would be off to the left of the screen, and that's an easier hitch than getting off the trail at mile 566.5 at Highway 58. This is an interstate highway, and it would be a more difficult hitch to get into Tehachapi. Problem is, if you're the passionate hiker about putting your feet on every mile of the trail, you leave Tehachapi and you're coming back to the trail. If you got off at mile 558, you're hitting 558 when you return. And now you've added those miles to your climb to your next water. You can see that from mile 566 to mile 573, it's almost a 3,000-foot climb. And then you get another 1,000 feet before you get up to mile 634. Southern California snow. Typically, Southern California is called the desert section, but you will definitely encounter snow. Snow can fall at any place at any time along the PCT, and Mount Laguna at mile 42 is where you would first see it. Currently there is snow at Mount Laguna, and usually it's light and melts quickly. It's not very dangerous. Then you get up to Mount San Jacinto, and this is at mile 170 through 191, and you're at 9,000 feet at mile 186, and the summit is at 10,800. And you can have steep, dangerous snow conditions on Mount San Jacinto. 2 PCT hikers died in this area in previous years, one during a snowstorm in 2005, and another one fell into a snow chute at mile 169 in 2019. After this, you get into Big Bear at mile 245 all the way through mile 275, and you can have gradual terrain here with not steep snow, and it's not dangerous. After this, you get Wrightwood and Mount Baden-Powell at mile 365, and you can have steep, dangerous terrain here. The climb up Mount Baden-Powell happens on the north side of the mountain, and it's a series of switchbacks that go all the way up. When this is covered in snow, hikers don't have access to the switchbacks. It's more of a straight trail going straight up the mountain, and definitely steep and dangerous. So to that point, you can see these photos here. This was basically taken 3 weeks ago, except for it was 3 years ago. February 25th of 2019, the snow, somewhat representative of what we would see out here this year. Maybe we have a little bit less this year, but this is California Section D, and off to the left you have Mount Baden-Powell and Mount Baldy there, and in the background you have Big Bear and San Gorgonio area, and then off to the right side is San Jacinto. You can barely see there. Again, we have California Section B here. This is the same Mount Baldy and Mount Baden-Powell on the left with San Gorgonio and Big Bear area on the right. Then you have the I-10 corridor here in the middle of the screen, and on the left side is Mount San Gorgonio, and on the right side is Mount San Jacinto. So this is the PCT marches along all these snowy areas here, the ridge lines, and off to the right you can see the Mount San Jacinto and the Cranston Fire burn scar from 2018. It's pretty amazing to see how the snow exposes itself inside these burn scars. As you get up into the Sierra, this is what you can expect. This is as of March 12th. We're seeing snow levels that are below normal, quote unquote. That's the blue line here in the graphic, and they're comparing that to high snow years and low snow years. So we're just a bit below normal, but definitely above a low snow year. The north sides of these mountains can see a lot of snow lingering into the melting months. If you get on the north sides or you in shaded areas, you can definitely see a lot of snow, and that would slow you down. I could tell you PCT marches around the north side of Mount San Gorgonio, and Sunny D had some experience with hiking along that area, and all of a sudden just turning the corner, and all of a sudden you're in 2-3 foot deep snow on the north face when there's none on the south faces. Snow can melt quickly during the day and refreeze at night, and this causes a slick, dangerous condition in the mornings. So you want to plan your route accordingly. Hiking on snow is slower than hiking on a dry trail. Even if conditions aren't dangerous, it will slow you down. So you're not getting as many miles in your day as you would anticipate. Snow can completely obscure the trail, making navigation difficult. And this is where a digital map of some sort comes in handy. You can track yourself relative to the trail location. If you get off trail, you can navigate your way back to the trail. Sonora Pass at mile 1017 can have a lot of snow. Water crossings are something else to think about. Cross these spots early in the day if possible, and the reason why is as the snow melts throughout the day, you can have runoff increasing, and the depth of these creeks and rivers can increase as the day goes on, especially on warmer days. You're going to have water crossings at Wright Creek, which is at mile 771. And again at 774, you've got Tyndall Creek. South Fork Kings River is at mile 811, and that's something to really plan ahead for. Evolution Creek is at 851, and then there's an alternate that goes around that area at mile 850, and it's a much easier crossing. Bear Creek is another one at 869, and then Rancheria is at 980. So crossing early in the morning can mean the difference in a few feet of water level. Don't cross dangerous fords alone. You should go in a group, and you don't have to cross the trail at the designated trail crossings. If you navigate your way upstream or downstream, you may find safer conditions, particularly upstream. If you could find a way area where maybe it's split and you're crossing two creeks versus one big river, that would definitely be preferred. Send your videos in to our email address, water@pctwater.com. We'll get those archived. We'll post them on our Facebook page, and we'll notify the update into the water report as well. Little footnote here at the bottom: if you can add that email address into your inReach device, then you can send in real-time water crossing updates, and we'll get those into the water report and publicize it out for the people coming down the trail the next day. Your passes in the high Sierras are something else to plan ahead for. This is a list of all the passes that you'd have. A lot of people will try to get into a cadence, if you will, of hitting a pass one day at a time, and each day hitting another one as you go. You can hit the trail before the ice melts. You have a more firm trail, but not so early that it's too icy that it's slippery. So there's a fine line there of when you decide to leave camp and hit the trail and head up the pass. And then you're planning the descent off of that pass, and then there's water crossing at the bottom of it or halfway down or whatever. You want to try to hit these passes early in the day, but not too early to put yourself in icy conditions. The Sierras are notorious for having thunderstorms in the late afternoons. This is pretty common. You want to plan accordingly, and you want to avoid descending from the tops of the passes late in the day, which leads to a lot of post-holing and extremely slow going. Post-holing is frustrating and just can be flat out dangerous with probable injury. There's a link here for our 2019 Sierra webinar video. I'd recommend that you check that out. There's a lot more information on the Sierras there than you're going to get in this webinar. PCT closures as of January 28th. I don't think any of these have changed in the meantime. But there's an endangered species closure from mile 384 to 390. There's also a bobcat fire closure at mile 381, and that spans all the way to 403. This is the big one that I showed earlier. Rumor has it this could open up April 1st. Time will tell if that's going to happen or not, but I would expect that. Then we have the Caldor fire up in El Dorado National Forest that happened last year, and that created a closure from 1083 all the way through 1092. California Section M has a closure, and this is at access to the Feather River. The trail isn't closed per se, but accessing the water at Feather River is subject to penalty. I think they have a fine set up if you get caught down on that water, and this is because of the bear fire that happened last year. This is at mile 1249.7. And in Oregon, the Lion's Head fire on Mount Jefferson is created a closure from mile 2027 to 2048. Then finally, we have travel into Canada on the PCT is prohibited, and this is as a result of COVID-19, the pandemic. And there's a link here where you can read more about that. For the latest closure information, the PCTA puts out their list on their closures webpage. I would definitely recommend that. Fires are no joke. If you are hiking near a fire, you want to pay special attention to your surroundings, which way the wind's blowing, and where that fire is at relative to you. PCTA closure webpage has updates on the fire. They'll span all the way from recommending that you don't go down the trail to telling you that the trail is closed. Our Facebook group is linked here. We have ongoing update of any fires that are happening in there. People are getting information out of the PCTA or BLM or U.S. Forest Service, different agencies, and bringing that into the Facebook page and keeping hikers updated with that. And then you can get yourself an app that tracks these fires. This is one that it only costs $1, and it's Fire Finder. My understanding is this is a pretty good app to be using. PCT water report shows any fire closure, and this is how we do it. We have the yellow text bar going across. We're showing that this area is closed, and then down the left side, all the miles that are closed have the yellow bar going down the left. On the PCT report, we show it the same way with all the hazard markers on the trail. So right here, the red trail is closed. The blue is a reroute that we've shown on the map. And then any designated areas surrounding that are closed are also shown with the red hazard markers. In Southern California, you will come across poison oak and poodle dog bush, and these are something to watch out for. Poison oak is present at lower elevations, The rule here is leaves of 3, let them be. Poodle dog bush is present in recent burn areas, and it's an ingenious bush that will actually grow in an area after a fire, and it's to reduce erosion, but at the same time it has these poisonous spines on the bush that can definitely get into your clothes, get into your skin, cause hospitalization. The plant is frequently overhanging the trail. You can kind of dance around it. Your first indication that the plant is around would probably be the smell. It's similar to marijuana, so you'll actually smell it before you see it. So you want to wear long sleeves and long pants, particularly in Section D of California. Post-trail life and reintegrating back into society is something to look ahead at. My predecessor is Matt Parker. His trail name is Double Tap, and he put together this documentary about the chronicles of multiple long-distance trail hikers and their experiences of reintegrating back into society after their long-distance through hike, featuring a focus on post-trail depression and the methods that hikers have used to get around it. Matt's put together a pretty interesting video with all of the interviews that he did of these hikers, talking to them about their hike, their return back home after the trail, how they dealt with re-entering society. Well, that's all we have for today. Introduce you know, this is Lon Cooper here from earlier, the grandfather of the water report, the grandfather of the PCT half-mile maps. And we have Matt Parker and Double Tap. He headed up the PCT water report for several years before I took it over. And then Sunny D, Danny Awesome. She's stepped up into the rank a couple of years ago, and definitely glad to have her as a part of it. With that, I'd like to take on any questions that you guys have. If you have anything, you can type it into the message box, or you can unmute your microphone and just speak up.
Hey, Mike, I'm just curious how you sync up with gut hook / far out. Is that just purely manual, or do you have a way of detecting incremental updates as opposed to having to just go out and continually read through them?
That is purely manual, and we're not we don't have a formal exchange of data between gut hook and the water report, or vice versa. During the pandemic, we had a low population of hikers on the trail and a reduced water report participation. Devilfish was helping to keep the water report alive, if you will, and he was feeding data to me, and I was dumping it into the water report. But there isn't a formal exchange between the two.
I just wonder if they would do something to push incremental changes, because I would think that would be a big challenge to go in. You have to go into every location and look for new updates.
Yeah, and that's basically what Devilfish was doing, and it was a manual process on his end and my end both. Our PCT report map is kind of headed in that direction. It's not the kind of thing where you're standing at the water source and you enter in the report yourself. You would email the report in or text the report in to the water report, and then we would update it manually into the water report Google Sheets or the PCT report map. And I like to think there's a little more quality control as a result of that. If something comes across where a hiker's standing at a water source and they're reporting a dry source, but yesterday it was flowing strong for another report, I would question both of those hikers and say, hey, I know yesterday you reported this flowing strong, but today we got a report that it was dry. Are you sure you had the right reference? Or question the dry guy and say, yesterday it was flowing. You know, what, do you have the wrong mile marker or something like that? I don't see that happening in gut hook.
And just on that note, the chat entry about mile 4.4 just came out of far out. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, I'll put that into the reports tonight. Thank you for that. You know, I've got a couple things that I didn't talk about in the video, and that's the campfire permit. You know, that's something that California does require for even use of your backpacker stove. And, you know, it's free. You go online and you take a 5-question quiz, and you can check that out at readyforwildfire.org, readyforwildfire.org, and do it all online. And basically, you print out a permit and you bring it with you. I've had one carried with me for about 5 years, and never have I been asked to show it, but you're supposed to have it. Something else is leave no trace principles, and we're all aware of those. I'd say probably the biggest infraction that PCT hikers have is with toilet paper left at the edge of campsites and things like that. Be mindful of what you're leaving behind, and try to consider the people that are going to be in that campsite tomorrow, kind of thing. Ned Tibbetts is a really smart guy. He has a lot of videos, and I think he even just recently did a webinar on the Sierras, traversing the snow-packed mountains or river crossings and that kind of stuff. He definitely delves into that a little deeper than what we're doing here. Unless anybody has anything else, I think we can cut it off here. I definitely want to thank you guys for joining in. We've been recording this, and it'll go on to our YouTube channel, and I'll post it as well on our Facebook page. I know that I'm giving you a lot of links in the video here, and you're not clicking on those links, but you'll be able to, there will be text down below in my Facebook post and in the description on the YouTube channel that has all the links in there. Well, thank you everybody for attending. Take care.